Those things were just garbage.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Will you be an angel for a helpless animal?
There can only be one.
The Shadow Crew Podcast.
Well, fellas, I'm back, and like in true fashion, I figured, what the hell, I might as well run the show. But that being said, I am happy to be back. I missed the last few weeks. That's on me. You know, just I had to go do a bunch of signings, and it's crazy, multi-million-dollar contracts, which is crazy. But I'm happy to be back on the Shadow Crew Podcast, and I am joined by my lovely, gorgeous co-host. Minus One this week decided that he would take over the missing spot, which is a little bit weird. But we're going to do something different. Let's go around and introduce each other. I'm Chet Maddox, as always.
Dr. Brantley.
And Alexander Storm.
Yes, fellas, great to be back. Loved what I saw when I was gone. I will tell you, as we were talking off camera, I was in a completely different realm with Transformers. But understandably, I get it. I understand. I understand where the problems lie in Transformer movies, although the latest one wasn't that bad.
No, the latest one was actually pretty good.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it.
So,
but you know that wasn't on the $1 billion list though yet, so we couldn't rank it.
yeah, I know that's in my mind it was. We have some trailers that we want to go over and talk about, but kind of kicking it off with our first topic, Ahsoka, episode 5. What are your thoughts? I'm gonna be transparent. I'm just gonna kind of like guide the conversation because I didn't watch it. I can't. I tried. Maybe I'll watch it and come back. But I honestly I tried. And
this week's episode I thought was good for the level of. I thought that Dave Filoni was a good successor to George Lucas. It seemed like something that was truer to what George Lucas would have done. I thought the relationship between Anakin Skywalker and Ahsoka were extremely well, and the jumping back through time. And yes, I'm going to spoil this for you, Chet, since you didn't watch it.
That's fine.
I thought, and if anyone else had to watch it, I guess I'm going to spoil it as well. I thought the time jumps, the whole thing that Dave Filoni's good at is the Clone Wars, and I thought he did a very good job of having the characters kind of take most of their origin story back there, and you can see the training, which we've never seen in live action before, the young Ahsoka and the Anakin Skywalker. So I thought that was extremely well, and I thought it was one of the better appearances by Hayden Christensen. I liked it a little bit better than the Obi-Wan appearance he did.
It was pretty good. I mean, you never seen, it was like a live action Clone Wars. It looked fantastic. The one thing that Obi-Wan had with Hayden is the Darth Vader stuff, because they had a couple images of it, but in that he actually was Vader and the best he's ever been, like the baddest he's ever been, which was cool.
I think the reason why this episode worked the same way, Dr. Brantley, was just we had never seen Hayden Christensen in the Clone Wars. So to have that kind of interaction between that and Stormtroopers and all that time, it was if we would seen the live action version of the Clone Wars, but done by the guy who created the Clone Wars. So it was like everything was detailed. It was extremely accurate. I thought Hayden Christensen even acted a lot like that character. So you can tell he actually watched the Clone Wars himself, because his movements, his mimics, his speech was exactly like what we saw in the animated version. So I thought as an actor that made him extremely versatile. And I know he was condemned for doing the prequels. And I think that now audiences can probably say that, Hayden Christensen deserves a little bit of praise, because it truly might have been the direction of those prequels and how he was told to act, and not his actual talent itself that we're seeing emerge now.
Yeah, I think just to speak to that, if you watched like Looper, if you remember him in Looper, not the same dude acting, completely different guy. And I think the problem is that, like, if you want to count those episodes as Star Wars, that's fine, but in my opinion, those things were just garbage. And
I got a bad feeling about this.
Don't just stand there, try and brace it with something.
I think that his acting was. I think that the way that he was done was an issue of the acting. So, I mean, hearing you guys talk about this makes me really want to like jump in and watch it though, because like didn't know any of this shit that was happening. So do you think that with this episode, like, did Dave prove that he's the right successor for George?
Definitely.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's never been more like a George Lucas Star Wars than it is right now in Ahsoka. The look, the style of how just the stories are told. It feels like it was sort of a bigger movie that they just chopped up into these little pieces, you know. And I think it will work as just one viewing thing, like one really long, like probably 3.5 hour movie or something.
So do you think that the Star Wars like Disney material has been better than the movies?
I think the Disney Plus material has been. I thought that maybe Book of Fett storytelling was a little bit slow and a little bit methodical, but I thought The Mandalorian has been fantastic. I think actually The Mandalorian is the reason why we're still talking about Star Wars and seeing films, because without the success of that show, I don't think we see any of the other stuff. And I think that Ahsoka, while it did take off a tad bit slow, and I knew the way they were going to, the last 3 episodes were going to speed it up, but this episode 5 was more backstory informative, and yet also it kind of did a grand kickback to, like, you know, the world beyond the worlds in Star Wars, where the Force and everything else is kind of like relied on that little extra realm. I think they did a really good job of telling that story, and with the actors as well, because again, I was really blown away by how well Hayden Christensen his acting was this time around. I was like, he really did kind of embody Anakin Skywalker this time around.
And you know, we made it this far. Hopefully an episode of The Mandalorian doesn't just show up in the middle of the Ahsoka series like it did in Boba Fett.
No, I think we're getting only 6 episodes, brother. I don't see it go further than that.
It could always just be a spinoff and another bad attempt at animation that they don't do.
I'm surprised they didn't actually have the live action version of like the Bad Batch to just walk through in one scene. I was waiting for it to see like how many things could Dave Filoni jump into like one little flashback scene, but he didn't.
Did you like the Bad Batch?
I did. I liked the animated show. I thought it was it's a timeline that I don't think we really have seen too much.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the reason why it's entertaining, because it's like it just fills in some gaps. And, you know, I'm kind of interested to see how that actually all concludes itself, because obviously I don't think it's going to go too well for the Bad Batch in the end.
Yeah, I don't know. I like that. There was a lot of the animated stuff from Star Wars that I was into. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how long Disney's going to be around, you know?
Yeah.
That's the real question, is like, maybe they found their stuff now, maybe they got their groove going with these Star Wars Disney Plus things, but if Disney Plus ain't around and Disney's not around, like, I don't really know I don't really know what's going to happen with that.
No, I'm hearing you. I've heard the rumors and the reports, and now we know that Apple's kind of not in the middle of that anymore. And now there's another group that's popping up, and it is a tad bit worrisome, because the Walt Disney Corporation on its own has always been a separate entity. They bought into, like, you know, the Pixars, the Star Wars brand, the Marvel brands. But when you have someone who really is not from the entertainment side of the business that comes in and grabs a, like, you know, entertainment company, well,
especially one the size of Disney.
We've seen what's going on with Warner Brothers over the last 10 to 15 years.
Well, even in the last like 2 weeks now, Warner Brothers, all the good stuff you can watch on Amazon Prime.
Yes, I saw that too. Yeah.
So literally, like, there goes Max, right?
Well, there's one thing that'll help it. Just give the writers and actors what they want so they can get back to work, and the studios can make money again.
Yeah, that's making money is always a plus. Speaking of need to make money, did you guys happen to watch Aquaman 2 trailer?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. Mm-hmm.
Thoughts?
Well, you know, like, remember when we said that Hayden Christensen had a problem with his acting style, and it was like it's a direction or that. Just the 5 seconds of Jason Momoa having the conversation with the screen, and I was like, this is so labored, and I was like, it didn't seem natural, you know. Now Black Manta seemed fantastic though. So, you know, maybe they should have made the movie called the Black Manta movie.
Well,
Yeah, but no, but who's ever really done Aquaman right?
You know what? There's an episode of I guess it was the Superman animated show. It was there's an episode where Aquaman's done, and it's changed from the Justice League version, but he's in the old orange and green suit, the guy that rode the seahorse kind of Aquaman. And actually, that was probably the best time I've seen Aquaman on the screen, done right and faithful, and it worked.
I like the old Saturday morning one.
So bad. So bad.
They took that off of Max as well.
Yeah.
Now, let me tell you something. I work in a trailer business, so I know how these things are put together. With superhero movies, a lot of stuff blows up. There's some cool visuals. You only need, a certain amount of that, a couple of good lines, and then you can make anything look exciting. I have a feeling that may be what they've done here.
Well, we've heard that there was problems behind the reshoots and every other situation, and I saw a report. I don't know if it was through one of the major publications. I can't remember one. Probably shouldn't divulge which one it was, anyways. But they said it was like a complete and utter mess that this movie is. So it has me worried because the special effects look okay. I've never thought the underwater stuff looked great in Aquaman. It just doesn't look consistent. But those characters, I think from the trench, and I think that's straight out of an Aquaman. I think that's one Jeff Johns wrote. Those characters. Yeah, that looked actually pretty good. But I just think Aquaman underwater and I think Ocean Master and rest. No, but Black Manta looked actually pretty good. His special effects. So maybe that's the stuff that's already just prepared and done, and everything else they're probably still working on. Maybe.
There's also that controversy where they were gonna get rid of Amber Heard too, right?
Yeah, I've heard
and
that.
then they have to do reshoots. Hopefully it's just not another one of those removing the mustache from Superman type of scenarios.
Well, you did see that she's only in one shot for less than a second in the entire trailer.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah.
So they're keeping her away.
Hi, I'm Sarah McLachlan. Will you be an angel for a helpless animal?
I think the Aquaman is I don't know. I think the first movie was a good popcorn movie. Mm-hmm. Wasn't anything to talk about. Don't have a desire to watch it again. But that's on par with DC in my opinion, unless it's an animation. Their live action stuff they can't get right. They couldn't get the Flash right. I think Aquaman 2, there was a lot of potential. But what people aren't doing is Aquaman, there's so much story you can tell that's not underwater, and it would make it epic.
Yeah.
They're focusing on Atlantis and underwater and Ariel's dad coming in to save the day, and it's just
he is king of the ocean.
Yeah, I know, but come on.
One thing I will give them credit this time though with the trailer, and I think we saw it on the Flash as well. But at the end of the trailer, it seemed like James Gunn got it and promoted the Aquaman books. Now, I think that was also done through the Flash, if I'm not correct.
Yep.
But this one was more predominant. It wasn't just an afterthought. They actually put in and said, "Hey, read the comics," and they showed the stories. And I thought they did a really good job promoting, which they said they were going to do. So it's better than what I think I've seen only Marvel do it one time, and that was with Hit Monkey at the end. You had to go through all the credits, then they put it up. And I thought this one, for the first time, they were advertising comics, not as a secondary thought.
But I think they have to do that because James Gunn right now is kind of like underwater trying to like justify what he's done with everybody. And good luck, because you literally came in and decided to just get rid of everything good you had going for DC. And I mean, everyone kind of said the same thing to him about Marvel, but at the same time, like,
Well, he hasn't even started yet, really. Like, none of his stuff has come out, and they're already tanked.
yeah. Well, no one's going to want to see Superman if it's not Henry Cavill, because regardless of what you think, like, that dude was perfect.
No, I think they made a big mistake, and I think the big mistake is that people really thought of Henry Cavill, and not in the same way they do as like Christopher Reeve, but he was the next actor that people were like, okay, that's Superman for my generation.
Yeah.
And I think that by removing him out of that and not giving him the opportunity to come back, especially after they had already announced that he was going to have a second film, and then just to pull the rugs out from under him, I don't know if you did any goodwill with your fans.
No, they didn't. It's like I was talking to a friend of mine a while ago. We were talking about sometimes there's people that play parts where you're like, holy shit, that was made for that person. And it's like Ryan Reynolds and Deadpool.
Yes.
Like, couldn't you just, it's like, no, I mean, like, you can't have a live action Deadpool if it's not Ryan Reynolds. In my opinion, like, Superman was Henry Cavill.
Yes.
And like, I mean, Christopher Reeve's fantastic. Old school Superman, like, you watch those old school Superman movies, they're actually really well done, and I don't think they get enough credit. Then you all of a sudden get this idea where we're gonna remove them, and to be honest, I think Jason Momoa is a good Aquaman, but it is just bad writing.
Yes.
He's not like a good Silver Age Aquaman, but he's like a good modern Aquaman.
Yes, but no, his acting just seemed like maybe the direction. He was more labored.
Well, yeah, that's it. That's because he did Fast X, so his acting kind of like went downhill trying to keep up with the Fast and Furious.
The curse of the Fast and Furious.
Yeah, but what was good to see was Godzilla Minus One trailer. What did you guys think of that?
I think it's probably one of the best looking trailers I've seen in a long time from Godzilla. It was fantastic, man.
I'm actually more excited for that than the Monarch show. It looked like something we haven't seen in the Godzilla stuff, where it's like actually what happens when a giant Godzilla foot steps on the ground right by you, right? And like the streets coming up, people, you see like the businessmen on top of a building and it starts to fall down, you follow them down, stuff we haven't really seen before. It looked very interesting.
Watching that trailer, there was a thought that came into my mind, and I wanted to talk to both of you specifically about this because you just have a little bit more involvement in that industry than I have. But there seemed to be a lot more practical effects in that trailer than like CGI, right?
Yes.
Well, if you notice though, one of the very first cards was written, directed, and VFX by the same guy.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. So it's probably like a Gareth Edwards kind of a situation where he's doing the effects on his own movie kind of a thing, and he's got this opportunity to make a big movie.
Well, that's the second Godzilla film that I think they actually have done Toho itself in Japan, that I thought they actually put a lot of tricks. So Shin Godzilla was like, they pulled out all the great effects and practical use and everything. And I'm like, this was really like, it looks like it's like a transition from a couple of years, but also a little bit more technology used.
Yeah.
But it just seemed like they're like, now when you're looking at the Godzilla films, we never could put them in the same contents of any of the American films. And now we're able to say like, there's some talent. And these guys are pulling out some really good passion projects over there on this character that's been around for what 50 years or so?
Longer.
Yeah.
Actually, it's probably more like 70.
69, dudes!
I think so. Yeah, it's been around for a long time. Yeah, because Raymond Burr's in like the first one, right? Yeah, so yeah, it's been a long time. But I thought that the just the whole cinematography and everything else. It just looks so like modern.
Yeah.
And you're like, they're doing the overseas. They're doing a lot better movies than I think we are. I think our indie market is kind of hurting now because I've seen some of those, some of the zombie films and everything that they're doing in Korea and everything else, and like, man,
I'm just gonna put it out there, but I mean, if you look at the movies that are popping up, coming from like overseas, one of my favorite movies of all time, is not from here. I just think that like overseas, they're just having fun making movies. In America, for the past maybe 4 or 5 years, it feels like we've just been making movies. How can I say this? It feels like we've been making movies to make sure it's okay in other countries than just making a movie to be good. Prime example of that is like Top Gun 2. Top Gun's one of my favorite movies. Top Gun 2 was fantastic, but they couldn't release it because they had to remove shit from his jacket before they would release it because it offended a specific area on the globe. And so, like, that's where I feel like we're missing the mark, right? Is like, if we could just get people behind movies to make movies like this Godzilla one, less than a minute into the trailer, I'm in. Like, I'm all in. And it's because I think you could just honestly tell that this is like a passion project, and the guy's like everything or nothing, and so you can feel it. I think that we're missing that, and I think that there needs to be change in that ASAP, or we're just going to be watching a bunch of foreign films.
Well, we're making movies for corporate entities.
Yeah.
And corporate entities are controlling it. And I think that sometimes over in the foreign countries, and I don't know this by any direct knowledge, but it just seems like that's not as a heavy-handed scenario. That when a filmmaker goes out, he makes a film. I'm sure there's certain people that want him to change certain things, but I think he has a little bit more freedom, and I think we're not seeing that over here. I think
there's not as much money on the line.
Well, that's
foreign
true
stuff.
too.
Here it's millions and millions. There it may be a million or two.
But the difference of it is there's still works of art, and when you don't let an artist do a work of art, then it becomes something that's minor. If you put, let's say, if there was 20 guys behind Picasso telling him what to do, would we have gotten his passion, or would it have been 20 other people's interpretation, and we would have got a la The Flash?
Yeah.
This is what happens.
My favorite movie, by the way, is Battle Royale.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I've seen that.
That's
movie.
what I was
That's
thinking.
A good film.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Like that, like even the second one, while it's not as good, it's still great. And I remember when Hunger Games came out, I was like, nah, I'm good. Like, you should watch Battle Royale and not worry about Hunger Games.
Yeah.
And if we're gonna go into foreign films, let's remember Old Boy, because Old Boy is fantastic. I think Old Boy is the John Wick before John Wick shows up, because that hallway scene is amazing.
It's so amazing they ripped it off as many times as possible.
They did.
However many ways they could with different color lighting. That's just all they did.
But I think it's just there's a lot less of control and heavy hands on projects, and it's starting to see, because the minute you see Godzilla come on the screen, you're like, well, okay, this is not going to be the average Toho production. This is actually going to be something that's going to step in with some quality, and I'm kind of interested to see that box office, because I think it's going to be pretty good.
Well, that's why I looked at that first, and then I looked at the Monarch trailer. And it's like the Monarch one is much more slickly produced and, better shots and composition, all that kind of stuff. But I'm more interested in Godzilla Minus One. It looks like there's more to it.
But I didn't think they did a bad job on the Monarch.
No,
it looks like a TV show. It looks like they were faithful to, all the Godzilla films and the Skull Island and a lot of the actors. Boy, and so it just looks like it's a extension of it, but it didn't look like I was like, oh my god, I don't want to watch this.
No.
It looked like we Americanized Godzilla, and they've taken it back now.
Yeah, I think that's why I liked it so much, because it was like, oh shit, they're doing the running in the streets, and then the foot comes down and like actually affects the street, and I was like, okay, that's new, and it's like, it was just like everything that I remember or that you've ever heard of Godzilla, where it's like Godzilla for some people is like a dude in a suit doing this. And like this is just kind of like, nah, it could be a suit, but it looks rad. So, but like speaking of like modern day movies and kind of like where everything's at in the box office, like what are your guys' thoughts on Equalizer 3? What are your thoughts on that box office right now?
You know what? This is the first time I can say, and I think other than probably John Wick, in a long time, this was a good third movie. Normally, the second one is a little drop off. The third one's like, okay, they should stop the franchise here. I'm a little disappointed that if we don't see Denzel Washington again, this is going to kind of suck because I'm looking forward to a possible Equalizer 4. And I don't want to give anything away, but that might be difficult.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say they could do a Equalizer John Wick crossover.
I would love to see that. Keanu Reeves said he wanted to do something like that. I was like, I would love to see that. If that ever happened.
That would be awesome, and I would watch that.
If that happens, I'm lining out the theater. I'm going to go back to like 1996 and sit outside the theater for that one.
Well, I mean, so right now, what is the 15th? So as of the 14th, like the total wide, it's done $112.4 million.
But that's worldwide.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the U.S., it's at 66, right?
Yeah, in the U.S., it's 66.4.
And it's actually going a little bit lower than the other two. They all opened around the same amount, like 34, 32 million. And the first two both were within like $1 million of each other. They ended at 101 and 102. But this one looks like it's going to be a little bit less than that. It's just like the same thing with Indiana Jones and Mission Impossible, where it's like, it's just not quite up to where the other ones were.
So do we know? I haven't looked, and I'm sure I can check while we're during this podcast. But like, do we know if this is a movie where you can also rent it?
No, I don't think it's on video demand. It's only in theaters right now.
Is it? Because they did that. Speaking of Transformers, they did that with the new release Transformers. I was gonna go to the theater and watch it, and I like pulled up my Apple TV and was like, wait, hold on, I could just rent this shit right now.
Right now, I don't have to go and drive in my car, go and pay a ton of money and parking, maybe get something to eat and drink, go in, find a bad seat. Have kids talking.
So I just don't know if they're like if they would be calculating that, but
I just think that it's hard for people to there's certain films that people are going to run out to the theater for, and then it's like Denzel Washington films will always have a steady crowd to it. There's always people like when you hear probably one of the modern day marvels of acting, it gets a little foot traffic. People still remember, Denzel's in the theater this week, and they,
I'm just waiting for Training Day 2.
Well, I don't think Denzel's had a flop since like Virtuosity or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's his last one. Actually.
It's been like 30 years. Every one of his movies has performed.
Hey, because that guy, I mean, he just picks. He can pick and choose whatever he wants, and he very rarely says yes to things. And when he does, they're like fantastic.
Yeah.
At least it's original.
Yes.
Like. It's as original as it can be
as a TV show from the 80s reboot.
Yeah. Well, but you don't have like people just sitting in rooms going like, all right, what remake should we do now? Because we don't want to, you know what I mean? And then screw up the remakes and doesn't, if they want to do Cobra.
Stallone is Cobra, the strong arm of the law.
Like I've said before, go ahead. Let's do Cobra, a new Stallone.
Don't recast it. It has to be Stallone.
Yeah, after like a hiatus where he's just way bigger than he was in that movie. It's Like it would be basically the same plot line as him and Wesley Snipes are frozen, and then they de-thought. What was that?
Oh,
movie?
Demolition Man.
Yeah, Demolition Man. It's just like, but it would be like Cobra, but with like, it's like
Cobra is thawed out in the distant future.
Yeah.
Well, see, I don't know if they could do like Cobra 2 because, like, let's be honest, that was a different LAPD then.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no way that Cobra could come back into the department now. There'd be a lot of lawsuits.
Do what you have to do to get a lead on this maniac. And if I find him? Do what you do best.
Yeah.
Well, see, no, that should be the part of it. It's like he's being kicked out of the force and they have to go back to him. It's like, oh, no one can solve this case but Cobra because, we have to follow the rules. He just does whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah. And look at his sunglasses.
Yeah. And then he repairs the 1940s Mercury. It's just
Mercury Sable. Yeah. Oh man, Cobra would be such a good show now.
Oh, I'm sure. With the technology and everything they could do now, oh yeah, Cobra would be all right, man.
I'm a fan. I'm excited. I'm happy for Equalizer 3 and its current success. I would say. I think it's in my opinion, in the current state of movies, like I consider it a success. At least it's not bombing. At least it's not getting canceled before it even comes out, because there are a few of those that have happened recently.
Well, let's be honest. How much money do you really think they spent on that budget? I don't think they went into it's not like they got to recuperate $200 million or something from the performance. It was a level-headed film. Antoine Fuqua does a great job of keeping budgets in a very respectable manner. And I think the studio's like it's a little bit considered to be like an action art house film. You know. So I didn't expect it to do like 500 million or $1 billion worldwide. But if it can pull in let's say 235 mil, I think the studio will be happy with that.
Yeah, and Antoine Fuqua is one of those directors that kind of goes under the radar. People talk about the flashy ones like Tarantino and stuff like that, and Scorsese and Spielberg, but he just delivers consistent, well-done movies just about every time.
Well, ask yourself, when was the last time he had a ball? Proven filmmaker.
Yeah, it's a good question.
You're wondering why he's not doing any superhero movies?
Because you don't need to. Moving towards the best of series, best swords of all time. What character had the best sword on the big or small screen? That's a tough one.
It is.
I got 4.
You got 4?
I got 4 different ones, but
okay.
I think for me, the one that goes to the top is Conan the Barbarian. The Atlantean sword that he finds when he's running away from the wolves. And I absolutely love that he, they do a cut where he's got this sword now. Those wolves were after him, and then the next shot, it's him walking with a wolf coat. He's just walking. It's like you don't even need to see what happens.
Yeah.
But you guys go ahead, and then if you miss them, I will tell my other 3.
For me, I'm gonna say, and I'm not gonna just include just it on film. I think in just all kind of screens or all kind of phenomena. I'm gonna say the Sword of Omens from Thundercats.
Thunder, Thundercats, ho! Yeah, I actually have one of those toys I got to unbox. Yeah, no, okay, those are all great, but we all know there can only be one.
Uh-oh.
That's
I
one
knew
of
this
them.
was gonna go.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I know what you're talking about.
The dragon head katana from Highlander. There can only be one, and it's not even that good of a sword. It's just from Highlander, and the way he pulls it out and it like lights up. Come on.
Well, I don't know. Back in the days when we were going through conventions, and actually, this is going to tell how old we are. But they actually had like real katana blades with that like handle.
Yes,
and you
they
would
did.
go through, and if you had like
You can't buy that shit anymore at the convention.
Yeah, no, not at the convention anymore.
Yeah, you know what it was too is when they sold the swords, it had to have some rubber thing on the tip, and the blade had to be dull underneath. But you could.
Oh
buy
no,
it.
brother. No. We were old school going to conventions in like the 80s and the early 90s, and there was no protective kind of thing. Guys were walking through with like 100% katana swords and everything that could probably kill a person.
Well, you have one up on me. I didn't go to conventions in the 80s.
Yeah, brother. We've been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Like fine wine, we keep getting better.
But to your point though, like as far back as I can remember going to like just San Diego Comic-Con before it was big, and then when it got big, like the early days of San Diego Comic-Con, like you could buy that stuff too.
Oh yeah, easily.
Maybe not like Anaheim Convention Center style swords, because that Anaheim Convention Center has let's be honest. If you've ever been in California, I was born and raised there. Lived there for like 39 years. There's some shady shit that happens at the Anaheim Convention Center that you just shouldn't be able to do. And I've been to a few awkward things at the Anaheim Convention Center, so it wouldn't surprise me that I could go in and buy a replica Highlander sword and cut the guy's head off at the same time.
Well, the same thing when you go to D23, they've got like actual full laser pistols from Star Wars and everything. I didn't even know those things were real. So I went to like Anaheim Convention Center.
That's what I'm saying. It's like the only thing shadier than that. No, there's nothing shadier than that.
Yeah, you do know we'll never be allowed in Anaheim now, too.
Yeah, that's the whole point of this podcast is to just kind of keep ticking the shit off our list we can't talk about, or we don't get sponsorships on, which is fine. We'll make our own sponsorships. So Doc, which swords were on the top of your mind?
So Highlander was fourth on my list, and number 2 was Andruil, forged from the shards of Narsil. Lord of the Rings, that is beautiful, super long sword. That's probably the longest sword I've seen on film, because in Return of the King, he pulls it out and the camera just keeps like going up and going up and going up. That one is pretty awesome, it's the King's sword. The third one, and Mr. Storm, hopefully you'll agree with me on this, is the Braveheart sword, William Wallace. Oh, yeah. That's a beautiful sword, and it's floating in the wind when it sticks in the ground.
So dramatic.
Yes. See, I was thinking about this too, because that's what the topic came through the email this morning. I was thinking, the Game of Thrones. What was it? The sword they gave? I can't remember the character's name, but it was she carried.
Oh, Needle.
There you go. That's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Needle.
Yes.
That was a cool sword.
That was a cool sword, although I don't know if that would protect you in the fight, but she did a pretty good job of it.
Yeah, no, Needle was good. I will say an honorable mention for me is Sword of the Spirit, which was given to Spawn when he was in Limbo.
Mm-hmm. Now, if we're talking about swords, does the lightsaber count as a sword?
No.
Okay, all right, okay.
It's a flash.
No energy swords.
Now, there's also...
You could have a sword. It would count as a sword if, and hear me out, if it was a sword, there was metal, but then also had like lightsaber around it, that would count as a sword.
So then the dark saber counts?
Yes.
Well, okay, but it's still made out of light and everything.
The dark saber has an actual saber.
No.
No, it doesn't.
Because he's just a handle. He can turn it on.
It just looks metal.
Yeah, no, it's got to have metal involved in it.
Okay, all right. So we got to knock
there's
that out.
Also the Green Destiny from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Oh yes,
that is a good
underrated
sword.
movie.
Oh, yes, great sword too, man. Great sword.
Yeah. Ugh.
Now,
I'm curious to see what.
Is there
Chris
a winner?
Yeah.
Because out of all these swords, Has anything changed your mind from what your pick was?
No.
I still will go with the Sword of Omens because it was one of the few swords that to give you sight beyond sight, you could actually see trouble before it came. So it's a pretty good sword, man. And it also had a signal in it, so you got to give credit to like a sword that's a multi.
So how did the Thundercats ever get into trouble?
Well, they did, and then he would use the sword.
Hey, calm down, calm down. Okay, suspension of disbelief. How come none of us picked He-Man's sword?
You know what? I was never a big He-Man fan.
Me either.
I can't look at
Comes with a
He-Man the
castle,
same
though.
anymore as now that I've watched him sing the Cranberry song, or a three non blonde song.
Oh Jesus!
Have you seen that?
No, I've seen it. I think it was just because it was Filmation. I just never really liked the animation on He-Man for some strange reason.
it was bad, but I'm gonna send you guys the link to He-Man singing that song.
And so I cry sometimes when I'm lying in bed just to get it out what's in my head, and I feel it.
It's real. I cannot. I mean, the Kevin Smith stuff that he came out with was garbage for that He-Man on Netflix, which he's never gonna be on the show either. Mark that off.
No,
but I don't even know if the Power Sword even gets like an honorable mention.
Well, I can tell you this one thing: the editor's probably cutting in that right now. That song.
And I say, hey, yeah, 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 hey, yeah, yeah. I say, what's going on?
As long as copyright will allow.
Yeah, exactly. As much as copyright, there'll be another strike that we get.
Yeah. So we talked. So we were talking about buying swords at conventions, and conventions aren't what they used to be, right?
No.
So coming up, we have Hasbro Pulse Con on Friday, September 22nd. What do you think? Are we using con a little too freely here? Like, are we freeballing this shit with the word convention everywhere? I feel like maybe we are.
I think when it starts being used by corporate entities, then yes, you pushed it too far. And I think, like, you know, if you think about like what D23 and you're thinking about the PulseCon and everything, let's be honest, it's just a place where they're selling merchandise at. Now, the early days of the comic convention was just pretty much so you can actually sit there and meet, you know, the creators behind it. It wasn't so much of, you know, pushing products out the door. And the same thing with some of those, the early entertainment ones, like the Star Trek convention in the 70s wasn't about selling merchandise. It was basically
meeting everybody that was into your stuff.
Everybody that was into it. And now I think the corporate
existed.
entities have done a great job of just, well, it's a post-con. This is how much money we need you to spend. Because it's not like they're bringing in celebrities or anyone to sit down and talk about the products. It's basically, here's the products, it's a convention, and there's a price tag, and you don't even need to go to it. You know, I don't know if anybody, since we're talking about the Anaheim Convention Center, just the price. I remember one time we looked at tickets, and I was like, they're out of their minds. To see previews of Star Wars shows, you're like, you've lost your mind.
I mean, it's Disney, like that'll collapse soon. I don't think people are gonna do that. But I think like the San Diego Comic-Con that just passed, where they didn't have anything in Hall H, anything like that, and Jim Lee had made a comment about like we're finally getting the conventions back.
Yeah.
I truly believe that, like, so I love pop culture. I love the industry. I buy toys like they're going out of style. I love all that stuff. But where I always found myself when I went to San Diego Comic-Con, I was always in like the back corner where all the like comic stores were. Because like, in my opinion, if you go to a convention, right? Like a convention is a place where everyone that likes the same crap for the most part is conveniently coming to a spot where everyone is into the same thing, and you might get to maybe something you find is a little bit different, but it's still in the same ballpark, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as somebody who's created board games and been in the board game industry and like, and then comics and all that stuff, like I appreciate that side of it. Like Hall H to me at Comic-Con was always garbage. Like save that shit for somewhere else, right? The conventions, like conventions are just that. I feel like I'm on my own island. People don't like the shit I like, but you tell me I can go to this place where everyone likes the same shit I like I'm gonna go. And I think like to say Hasbro PulseCon, where's the building at? It's not a convention. You do it online. So it's not a convention. It's completely pointless to call it a convention. Because in my mind, if you're going to have Hasbro PulseCon, then I should be able to go there so I could get all the shit that I couldn't buy because I, didn't like fund it or whatever on HasLab. But that's not the case. This is just like a Hasbro PulseCon where they have like 2 or 3 hosts that don't know anything about anything they're talking about, read off a teleprompter and say the wrong shit at the wrong time, and try to get me pumped up about a Transformer that doesn't exist. And it's like, and then they say, oh, by the way, we released all these like exclusive GI Joes and Transformers, but you can't get them because everyone that has bots is scraping the website and has now bought all of them. So thanks for wasting 3 hours of your day watching Hasbro PulseCon. See you tomorrow. That's what that is. And so I'm with you in terms of like convention. Like we got to bring convention back to what it was. We got to stop this idea of like.
I think that also is the hands of the people that are running the convention as well, though, because we've been in conventions, for way many 2 years, but we started when it was just about comics, and you go into Artist Alley, you're respecting the artist, you get someone that signs a book, or you get 10 minutes to speak with creator of one of the books you did, and it was very personal. And then they moved into more like the corporate America thing where they were like, okay, well, let's try to grow the convention. And I'm not knocking them for growing the convention. I just think that what they did was they grew the convention where they lost control of it.
Yeah.
And so now these guys are like secondary thoughts that they're pushed further and further and further at the end of the convention. And then these huge mega booths are in there with massive toy companies or massive video game companies. And I think that there's nothing wrong. Like E2, when you go to E3, it's all about video games. It's their convention. You don't see Hollywood actors and having rows of tables and everything. It's basically about the games and the people behind them. Well, Comic-Con lost their ways. At least San Diego has. And I think that what they're in the end game for them is the way they started the convention will be the way they end the convention, because Hollywood's a fickle place. They're going to get tired of last year, when they knew that the strike was coming, what did they do? All these mega entertainment companies said, well, we're not going to go. There's no need to push our products to anyone. Well, it's been 3 years since the pandemic and everything else has happened. Hollywood's going to get fickle. They're going to move to something else. And then what are you going to have to do? You're going to have to fall back and rely on what you did before. So you better hope that industry's still there in order to carry on conventions.
Well, and like I could spend all the money to go to San Diego Comic-Con, or I could go to like Gen Con, right? Or like very specific conventions for board games, or even like smaller comic conventions that cost like a fraction of the cost for San Diego Comic-Con, and probably have a better time. Because it's not, I'm not rubbing elbows with sweaty nerds to like fight over something that I'm not going to get. And I love San Diego Comic-Con. Been going there since like early 2000, but like at the same time, you just get to a certain point where it's like this isn't really like I'm going there. And I remember at one point in time I would go to San Diego Comic-Con. I was like, okay, cool. I bought $3,000 to spend on just shit. It wasn't even like that's what I'm using to eat food with. That was like this is what I'm happy because I got a lot of exclusives, and I think it's cool. But yeah, I think we got to bring the convention stuff back. So we can just.
I think they're going to get an opportunity with that because, again, I think that especially with the thing that we've seen over the summer with the studios, I think that when the studios come back and the actors and the writers all settle the dust in, I think they probably won't be spending needless amount of money at conventions and everything at that moment. They might have to look at their bottom lines a little bit better.
Yeah. No, I agree. In those same conventions too, though, you were meeting new people and then like comparing collections of things that you had, or you had like talked to somebody on the phone, or sent them a letter in the mail and they were going to bring something for you. So there was always this, like, it was always meant for, like, if you're an avid collector, come to this convention. And it's just not that. Speaking of, like, conventions and collections and things like that, kind of wrapping it up as we get ready to close out. What are your collection purchases this week? Any purchases you made this week? Any rundowns?
Was not even for, like, just the purchases. It was basically the toll has come. Because before Hasbro Pulse pops in, I had ordered over the last couple of years everything through. I'm a huge avid GI Joe fan, so I remember they were showing like digital renders, and it's going to be here this day. And then for a while it took them a year to get stuff going, and now this last time I did some purchases. And it seems like it's just like every other day, something's dropping, saying like, "Oh, this is coming from Hasbro Pulse. This is coming." So this week I've got 2 other items coming, but just to put it up this again, big G.I. Joe fan. I got the Cobra Snow Serpent that came in. This came in from Big Bad Toy Store. Let me put this close up there. I'm giving them a plug. They always do a good job of sending stuff out. So that's the Cobra's. Snow Serpent, and I've got like Snow Job coming, and then they finally, after I think about a year of Dr. Mindbender, they just sent me a thing saying that's showing up. And then the next thing was this huge item, which is the Cobra Trouble Bubble. And that came awesome. In. Oh, yeah. So, and again, this is more stuff's coming on the way. So I was like, oh my God. It was like a ping it seemed like every other day. I was like, wait a minute, this is early. What's going on?
Yeah.
And I'm like, uh-oh. So when they said like the PostCon on September 22nd, I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. That might be coming all in October now.
I got no money left for these.
Yeah, it's breaking my bank, man. Hasbro, you're killing me.
Yeah, and Target is killing me because yet again, since I think it was like the second or third podcast we did, I've gotten 2 more updates about how Club Obi-Wan Indiana Jones is delayed yet again.
Shit.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, please select, a later delivery date than we told you. So now they've pushed it back, I think, at least 2 months from when I was supposed to get it. I'm thinking it may not show up. I had this sneaking suspicion that they did something wrong.
Well, if you talk to Shadowe, we'll probably find it in like at Burlington Coat Factory in about a week.
But
he's like, hey, I found your Indiana Jones character. It's in Ross.
Exactly.
But again,
well, like Club Obi-Wan, it's exclusive.
Yeah, exclusive to Ross.
So Target sucks, but then Hasbro Pulse, their stuff that they said was going to come came, and I got Marcus Brody and Renee Belloc is the 2 pack. Which is pretty cool. These guys.
No, is that the one that comes with the Ark of the Covenant Build-A-Piece?
No, these just came with Marcus came with an apple.
Okay.
And the giant Bible that he opens up, it's pretty beautiful. It opens up and it's like the actual picture that they have in the movie of like, the Ark from the Bible.
We might have to take back some of that stuff we said about Hasbro Pulse.
Yeah, no, these are great. Although, you look at them, it's like, okay, I'm from the Men in Suits collection. It's like these aren't that exciting.
I guarantee it.
Dr. Jones is a very classy man.
Men's Warehouse.
What you got there, Chet? What you got?
Oh man, what do I? Well, I bought a Super 7 Thundercats thing. I'm trying to figure out. I don't know where it went.
Did you fund that Cat's Lair? Still on the fence on that one.
Still on the fence about that because I do have an idea where I could put that, but I don't know if I'm gonna get it. Because while I love Thundercats, I just don't know if I could commit that much. Now, if that was like something to do with Transformers, there's a good chance it'd be in my house.
So if it's like they did Cybertron.
Oh, yeah. If they did like a replica of their ship in the side of the mountain, I would have that in my house.
Yeah, if they do anything like that for the Transformers, you think the cast labor was expensive? Oh man, a whole mountain with a ship in it. Oh god,
I'll just pretend like that price is fake money and I'll buy it.
Well, they'll take it in payment installs.
Yeah, I know that's what's great. Oh, you can't afford it all now. Well, we'll just What I will tell you what I have, and I don't think that I had this in the last podcast I was at. But I did buy a 3D printer.
Oh, God. So now you can just print your own stuff. So there's no Hasbro posts for you now.
Yeah, no. So, like, I'm organizing all my action figures as I open them up. I'm like, well, I don't really know where it's supposed to go. And then I realized that I need action figure stands. And so I just throw them into the 3D printer and print them.
Oh, okay. All right.
But what's great about that is, like, I can print sample toys, which is realistically, if I'm going to be honest, pretty much the only reason why I bought this 3D printer was so that I can make samples of toys that we want to make or that, we have ideas for. That was a giant purchase that probably didn't need to happen.
But I bet you it was still probably cheaper than Cat's Lair, right?
Well, how much is a Cat's Lair?
Oh, it's up there. It's not crazy. I think it's only like
$650.
I'm sure that 3D printer costs way more than that, right?
Yeah, I mean it did cost more than that, but I get stuff out of it. I don't know.
But you can print the Cat's Lair now.
I can. And you know what's crazy is so I love the way Nintendo NES games look, right? And I was like, you know what? I gotta. This would be cool if I could mount these on my wall as like pictures. So you just go online and there's a website called Thingiverse, and you can print these out. And these are little wall mounts that the NES cartridge sits on, and it sits on your wall. So,
all right,
whatever.
Hey, you gotta save a buck, brother. But in this case, you should probably cut a buck.
Yeah, yeah, that's a little too much. All right, any Jerry Springer final thoughts?
No, man, as usual, it's just a couple of guys sitting around talking and missed Mr. Calkins tonight. Hopefully he's back next week for us.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me back. I felt naked not doing this. So it's like a release, but for everyone that is listening, thank you for listening, and for those of you that are watching on the internet tubes, we want to remind you that you could subscribe and you could do thumbs up, but we also appreciate thumbs downs, and I troll the comments, so I will be reading comments, but thumbs up is always better than a thumbs down. So again, make sure that you subscribe, because we know that you're listening and you haven't subscribed, because it tells us. So
subscribe up here.
Yeah, the subscribe button's going to be like right in just on the screen in
and
general,
there,
like here,
over there,
or over there, or down here. I feel like we're like the Brady's bunch. But yeah, so we'll see you next time, and it'll be 4 of us, and it'll be fantastic because you would have subscribed and given us a thumbs up anyways and commented. It would have been great. So thank you for that. As always, I'm your lovely, gorgeous host, Chet Maddox, along with
Alexander Storm
and Dr. Brantley.
Thank you all so very much, and you're welcome.